Hello, welcome back. I hope you are doing well, and I hope you're looking forward to this training today. I know I am, because in this training, we're going to be delving into your brand and setting up your channel the right way. Because branding is an area a lot of channels get totally wrong, yet it really is crucial. And a lot of new YouTubers think branding just means the logo and the colors. But although that's part of your brand, there's a lot more to it than that. Your brand is ultimately the way people perceive you and the story people believe about you. Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, says your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So that includes the associations and feelings people have towards it. So when we talk about our branding and creating a brand strategy, we're essentially trying to control our story and reputation. We're trying to differentiate ourselves in a positive way. Because our brand is what makes us unique from everyone else talking about similar topics and selling similar products and services. And so the reason for focusing on branding is that not only does it make you more memorable and credible, it helps build loyalty. Just think about one of the most successful brands in the world, Apple. They can charge higher prices than a competitor whose product has the exact same specifications, largely down to the brand they've created. Many people are fiercely loyal to Apple and wouldn't switch to a competing brand. So branding is going to give us an advantage and ultimately allow us to sell our products and services at higher prices. So now let's start building your brand by going through some of the key aspects of it. And we're going to focus on 3 main aspects of your brand. So the very first brand consideration is your name. The first decision to make is, do you want to focus on a personal brand, a company brand, or both? A personal brand means that you are the face of it all, and you simply use your own name for your YouTube channel, and the business is built around yourself. So that's nice and simple for coming up with a name. A popular example of a personal brand who does this is Tony Robbins. A company brand, though, means you have a separate name. And although it's still your channel and your business, you create either a word or a phrase for the channel. And a popular example of this is Charisma on Command. Both options have advantages and disadvantages. For example, a personal brand is more transferable to other niches, so you could later branch out if you wish. Whereas if you're called Real Estate Investing 101, you're pretty restricted to what you're going to be talking about. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something to consider. However, if you intend to sell your YouTube business in the future, well, having everything linked around your name and your face may not be so wise. So it's entirely which route you go, personal brand or company brand, but there are a couple of things either way to consider when picking a name. One of those is it easy to remember? And also, is it easy to spell? Another thing is it different enough? So do a quick search to check if anyone has anything very similar. But then you also want to check, is it actually available? And there's a service called Name Checker, which will automatically look through all the big social networks to check if that username's been taken, and also will check if the .com version of the domain is available. And if those things aren't available, it's not the end of the world. You can always get a slight variation. But the thing is, you ideally want to have the same name for your business and your channel consistent across all different platforms. So whatever you pick to be your handle on Twitter should be the same on Instagram, Facebook, and so on. You want to keep it consistent so people can always find you by searching that same thing. However, my personal preference when it comes to creating your name is that initially, let's try and get the best of both worlds, both the personal brand, all the benefits that come with that, and all the benefits that come with the company brand as well. And an example of a channel that's done that, and there are a lot of examples, but one is Clark Kegley refusing to settle. So he's got the Clark Kegley personal brand, but also the refusing to settle company brand, all in one name. Or another one, some of you may know Omar's channel called The Passionate Few, but he has his own name in his YouTube channel as well. So he's building both simultaneously, the personal brand and the company brand. So basically what I'm saying is that rather than choosing between Mike Smith or Real Estate Investing 101, you could go for Mike Smith - Real Estate Investing 101 or Mike Smith's Guide to Real Estate, whatever it is. And I realize those particular examples are a little bit clunky, but don't overlook the benefits of this strategy. I'm going to give you a few on why I personally like this approach. Number one is it allows you to be a bit descriptive with your name, which helps people discover your channel. And you don't have to go super literal in describing exactly what the channel is about if you don't want. You can still be a little creative. But this way you can give some people the indication of what your niche is actually about and what your channel revolves around. So this is especially useful at the beginning when your name doesn't really mean anything to people. And having those extra details about your channel, like Real Estate Investing 101 or whatever, it helps make it more enticing and more obvious what it is, rather than just having Mike Smith. A second reason that I like this strategy, though, is that it also makes it very clear this is a YouTube channel and not just a personal account, which will come in handy later. Third reason I like this strategy is that unless your name is incredibly unique, the chances are when you type it into YouTube or Google, other people may come up at the beginning. So having something extra before or after your name means it's easier for people to find your channel and for you to stand out. Because until people know you a little better, they may forget your name or misspell it. Whereas having the extra bit after your name doubles the chances that people are going to remember part of it and be able to find it again. You know, even someone like Tony Robbins, when he was just first starting out, if he was making a YouTube channel and no one had ever heard of Tony Robbins, people aren't going to remember the name. It's only once they get to know him. So having this extra bit on the end would, at the beginning at least, just make it a bit more memorable and easy to discover. But there is a fourth advantage, of course, which is that you get all the advantages of having a personal brand. You know, having your own name in the channel title does help position you as the expert and help people get to know and connect with you specifically, which is all very useful when it comes to building an audience and eventually selling to them. So although you don't have to go with this strategy of using both a personal brand name and a company brand name all in your YouTube title, I do think it can be very effective. But it's your choice. Don't feel pressured into this. This is just an idea. What I should point out, though, is you're allowed to rename your channel after you've made it. So you can always drop part of the name later down. So let's say that your personal brand becomes a bit more established and people start to know you. You're the top result when people search your name. At that point, you may want to ditch the descriptive part of the YouTube name. You may want to ditch the real estate part. I'm just using real estate as an example. Obviously, you'd have whatever your niche is, something that describes it. But you could drop that part later and just switch to the personal brand once that's more established. Or vice versa. You could drop the personal brand if you changed your mind about it. But it's worth bearing in mind that you will be able to change it later. So you're not fully tied in. We just want to get something up and running. Hopefully that's given you some ideas at least. And as mentioned, there's always going to be pros and cons for any name. The key is to take some time to come up with lots of different ideas initially until you find something you are personally happy with. And by the way, once you have 100 subscribers on YouTube and your account's at least 30 days old, make sure you register a custom URL, custom URL for your channel, because then you'll get a special link to your channel like www.youtube.com/yourname. But now let's talk about a second key brand consideration, which is your graphics. To customize your YouTube channel, there's two things you can do. You can add a custom profile picture and a custom banner. And just like the name, these can be changed later and you're not tied to anything. So I would say don't spend ages trying to craft the perfect masterpiece right away. It's easy to get hung up on this at the beginning, but really that time could be better spent elsewhere, like creating videos. So although we do want to get a profile picture and a banner, I'm just saying, don't obsess over this. You can change it as much as you want later down the road. But here's some practical advice for both of those things. For your profile picture, if you've named the channel after yourself, you've gone the personal brand route, I think a good HD picture of yourself is a nice and easy option for your profile picture. If you haven't named your channel after yourself, instead you may be better off going with a simple logo with an image that represents what your channel is about. Or you could just have a logo that includes the initials of your channel name. Remember though, the profile picture will be seen at a very small size. So when you are designing the profile picture, make sure you zoom out so you can check it actually looks okay and that any text is actually legible when it's at that smaller size, because it'll always be seen just as a very small circle. As for your channel banner, which is basically like the billboard for your channel, the main priority is to give people an indication of what your channel actually is and what value it can offer them. Because people are busy. They see a lot of channels. So your banner should grab their attention. So you've got to make sure it's eye-catching and essentially tell them what you're offering and why they should care. So don't waste time on unnecessary details. Get to the point. For example, weekly nutrition videos to help you get ripped. Straight away, I know what I'm getting. And people are much more likely to subscribe if they understand what they're going to get. Obviously, add in some relevant images to the banner as well to help make things clearer and simpler for anyone who visits the channel page. But what we need to talk about now is how you actually create these graphics for your channel. If you already have some graphic design experience, you're obviously set already here. But if you have no idea at all, you've never created anything like this, you may want to use a free online editor like Canva.com, which has templates you can use as a starting point, and it's basically a drag and drop interface where you can add text and pictures. When designing the banner though, you also need to bear in mind that parts of it are going to be cropped out depending on which device someone views your channel from. So here's a template with dimensions. And as you can see, you want to make sure any important text and images are within that lighter blue color area where it says desktop minimum and mobile, because anything that's not within that area is going to be cropped on certain devices. Alternatively though, you may wish to outsource the graphics completely. If all of this is sounding a bit overwhelming, you're like, I want to make videos and I want to get involved in graphics. Fair enough. That's fine. Because you can actually do this very inexpensively and easily, so you don't have to worry about graphics at all. So rather than designing them yourself, you can go to marketplaces like Fiverr.com. That's one of the most popular, where you can get YouTube banners and logos very quickly and cheaply from a professional designer. Just make sure you browse a designer's portfolio before you decide who to buy from, as the quality on Fiverr does vary a lot. There's all different levels of abilities of designers on there. And although you can get, a great design at a pretty low price, just do a little bit of research, read the reviews, and check that there's something in their portfolio that's fairly similar to what you actually want. Because then if they've got lots of details to work from and they know exactly the kind of style you like, you've got a much better chance of getting something that you're very happy with. But almost all of them will offer quite a lot of revisions, so you can go back and forth and say, actually, can we tweak this bit? Can we try a different color for that? And so on. And actually, speaking of color, make sure you consider what color scheme you want before you place an order on Fiverr, because over time, your brand is going to become associated with those colors. So it's worth thinking, what color scheme do I want? What colors do I want representing my brand? But the reason I do like Fiverr as an option, or any of these marketplaces where you can hire someone to design it for you, is you can then save a lot of time by not having to learn how to do this yourself, and they'll often do a matching profile picture and banner together, which I think is quite professional if they're actually matching each other. Having said all this, if you're really interested in, doing this yourself, or you have a bit of graphic design knowledge, or you just don't want to spend any money, you can still make something good yourself using these tips as well. And like we said, we're not trying to make a masterpiece. We're trying to tell people what our channel's about and what value we can give to them. But let's move on to the third brand consideration, perhaps the most crucial of all in my opinion, which is your story. Because behind the physical elements of your brand, like your name and your graphics, there's also the less tangible aspects of your brand to consider. And I like to think of this as your brand story. In fact, one of the things you might not have expected from this course is how key stories are going to be for your YouTube channel's success and for your overall business's success. Why? Because stories amplify value. Humans love stories. They connect us. They stick with us. They help us understand things better. And ultimately, they create emotions and drive behaviors. So this all means that you should be using stories not only when you're creating videos, but you need to be clear as well on the overall story of your brand. bear with me here. I know this sounds a little bit weird, but at the heart of your story is your mission statement, which is what do you do and why do you do it? You want to be able to sum this up in just 2 sentences. What value do you want to bring to the world and what's driving you to do so? But try to dig deeper than the superficial layer of just saying, oh, I want to help people. Really think about what you're doing that's different from everyone else. What's your unique selling point, your X factor compared to competitors? What's your unique story and your unique perspective? Let me give you a practical example. The YouTube channel, Dad, How Do I, recently blew up and got over 2 million subscribers in just a couple of weeks. And there are countless other channels that post extremely similar videos on like DIY and how to do jobs around the house. Probably a lot of them have better production value than this channel. So why did it go viral? Why did it just blow up like crazy? Simple answer. Someone posted the channel link with this caption. His father left him when he was 12. Now he has a YouTube channel called Dad How Do I to help kids who are growing up without dads, teaching them basic tasks that you'd normally ask your dad for help on. Boom. Now that's a mission statement people can connect with, empathize with, and relate to. You'll notice it's less focused on pure facts and focused more on the emotion and story elements. Because even in 2 sentences, that tells us a bit of a story, which is much more useful than just listing advantages about what your channel is. It tells us why you're doing it. In fact, you've probably already heard of Simon Sinek's Start With Why concept. It's talked about a lot. But essentially, that premise, Start With Why, is the same thing we're talking about here, of how a story, i.e. why you're doing what you're doing, makes the whole thing more powerful and people can connect with it more. If you haven't heard of this Start With Why concept, I've included a link below to a condensed 5-minute summary, as I think it's worth a watch. But as well as your 2-sentence mission statement, the heart of your story, later down the road, you can also create a whole video on your channel's full story, your origin story as such. Yes, literally like a superhero. Because although that 2-sentence mission statement instantly helps people understand what you're doing, to help people buy into what you're doing even more, we need to give them more details. You can talk about things like your core values, what led you to learn about your niche originally, the challenges you had on the way to getting where you are now with your niche, and so on. But you're essentially sharing the lows as well as the highs, really painting a picture of your whole journey, and be as open and personal as you can, as this is going to massively help people relate and connect with what you're doing, which is extremely powerful. It's similar to the mission statement thing we just talked about, but just at a larger scale. And so you can do a whole video on this. But also, it further differentiates your brand and puts you in your own unique category, which is something we're always trying to do throughout this course. We don't want to just be the same as the others. So please don't overlook the power of having a story behind your brand. But then once you've got these 3 core elements of your brand nailed down, you've put some thought into the name, done a bit of research, you've either worked on creating your graphics or you've outsourced them, and then you've really considered, why you're doing this, what's the story behind your brand that people can get on board with. Once you've considered all the 3 of those things and got them nailed down, or at least nailed down enough for now, the final step will be either applying this stuff to your existing YouTube channel if you already have one, going in and updating it with the relevant stuff, or literally creating a brand new YouTube channel if you don't have one yet. And we'll get to that at the very end of this module in 1.7 if you don't have a channel already. Speaking of which though, we're nearly there at 1.7. We're nearly there at the end of module 1. And I know this first module of this course has been heavier on the planning and preparation side, but it will be worth it. It reminds me of that famous quote from Abraham Lincoln, who said, "If you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." It's the same principle here. It's tempting to dive straight into creating videos, but understanding your niche, your avatar, your branding, your story, and so on, if you do that first, it's the equivalent of sharpening your axe so that you can get vastly better results once we dive into the next few modules. And yes, I did just use a very short story to help illustrate my point, and as a result, I guarantee it made the point stronger. The power of stories, right? Anyway, I will see you in the next training.